What's up, guys? Doing a 1, 2, and 2, and it's Top Tuesday, or Wednesday, or whenever this gets posted. Yes, it's Top Tuesday. That means we are continuing our trip down memory lane through all the main sets of the game, and today is the final set in the Duel Monsters era, Flaming Eternity. Or Flames of Eternity? No, that's Flames of Destruction. Flaming Eternity. I swear that when Konami names a set of cards, they just have like a, like with those bingo machines, and it's like Flame of Destruction. There you go. That's the name of the set. It's like the same 10 words just cycled over and over again. Legacy of Doom. And as always, we're going to do our best to look at this set in a bubble. However, as the years progress, it's going to get a little more difficult because more and more cards are going to reference other cards. So basically, we're just going to kind of have to start looking at other things, maybe like competitive success or just objective modern opinion and screw it. And just if a card used to be good and it's not anymore, it's casualties of war. I don't know. Now, some people might say, well, this is a GX set, Dave. It's not really technically a GX set. The next one is officially the first GX set. This one's more of an interim set. So if it's not GX, it's by default must be the end of the Duel Monsters era. However, it is a little weird because this one does not have Yugi on the cover like all the other ones did. So it's just kind of bumper set. So you know what? I'm sticking it in Duel Monsters, so that way I can officially end the Duel Monsters era. It also means that we may be taking a break from this series for a few weeks, so I can do some other stuff I've been meaning to do and putting off before we get into GX. But I will be doing GX, 5Ds, Arc V, Zexel, and Brains. Those are the names of the series. So don't worry, I'm not quitting the series. But without further ado, let's get started. Number 10 is Spell Absorption. Pretty bad, one of the best cards in this set's kind of a do-nothing card. But what does it do? Spell Absorption is a continuous spell that says after a spell card resolves, the player that controls this card gains 500 life points. Cool thing is any spell, so it's quick play, field, other continuouses, things like that. Who cares? You're going to be gaining all the life points in a deck like Spellbooks or Sky Strikers or something. But the problem with this card is pretty much every duelist who's worth his salt will tell you that unless it's the last 10 seconds of the game, your life points really don't matter. So this is just gonna hit the field and immediately do nothing upon its own resolution. So it's just gonna sit there and waste a spot on your board and be a dead card in your hand until you actually can start gaining life points with other effects, which is why it's a do-nothing card. However, there is some weird wombo combos you can do with it, and when you look at all the other cards in this set, it doesn't have much competition. I don't know what it is about the last couple of sets in Duel Monsters, but this era really goes out with a whimper, and it's kind of sad. Good Goblin Housekeeping. Good Goblin Housekeeping is a normal trap card that reads, draw cards up to the number of Good Goblin Housekeepings you have in your graveyard +1. Then select a card from your hand and put it on the bottom of your deck. So that means the first one of these you activate, you get to cycle one card out of your hand, but you use the trap, so you're -1. The next one you activate, however, is looking at the first one that's in the graveyard, so you draw 2, spin 1, and then you lose this card. So you're goose egg. When you have 2 in the grave, because you sent that second one, you could end up with a +1, and then if you've somehow managed to drag this duel out 80 million turns to the point where you would have drawn negative cards out of your deck, and you've somehow, beyond all ever statistical analysis could ever predict, you managed to resolve 3 of these things, you get a +2. That's cool, I guess. Back in the day in slower Yu-Gi-Oh! This was much more doable to actually use this card effectively as a draw or at least a cycle engine. However, nowadays it's quite slow being a trap, but it does seem to be the inspiration of that 1FA card, so that's kind of cool. Holy crap, I really hate doing these videos during the summer. It is really warm in here, and the lights, these lights though, man. Oh, oof. Silent Swordsman level 5. Silent Swordsman level 5, he's kind of the weird one on the list because if you look at the set completely in a bubble, and this is exactly why I mentioned earlier that we might have to start changing rules, you can't even summon it. You can normal summon it, but you can't summon it using the lower level guys, so that's kind of weird. And then its effect can't even completely resolve because number 7's not in the set. So it's like, what do you do? But he's okay, so it'd be weird not to mention him, so you can see my problem here. Silent Swordsman level 5 is a level 5 warrior with 2300 attack and 2000 defense with the following effect. He's unaffected by your opponent's spell cards. Okay. Then, during the next standby phase, after this thing did some battle damage last turn, you can send it to the graveyard to special summon level 7's Silent Sorcerer dude from your deck or hand, because it's a level monster. Ugh. Back in the day, this wasn't so bad. Being unaffected by spells was okay, being the fact that at this time in the game, we're starting to get to the legendary GOAT format here. I think this is the start of it. At least this set was the start of it, because I think the next set comes out in the middle of the format or something. Maybe. I'll look at a timeline later. So there was tons of power spells running around, so this thing being unaffected by some of those that actually have on-field resolutions that don't do hand things and stuff like that, which means, yeah, he's going to be kind of immune to some of the big bombastic cards of the day, which is kind of cool, and at 2300 attack, that's not awful for level 5. Overall, not a bad monster. Sacred Phoenix of Nephthys. The Sacred Phoenix of Nephthys is the cover card of the set, and he's actually alright. He's not the best card in the set, but his effect is kinda cool. During the next standby phase, after this card was destroyed by a card effect, special summon it to the field, and when you do that, it nukes all spells and traps. It comes back as a heavy storm. As the Phoenix rises from the ashes. I kinda like the fact that its card art and theme of the card is built into its card design. That's kind of neat. I like that kind of stuff. It's a little slow. Yeah, but back in the day, we didn't have tons of fancy removal. Destruction was still quite widely used. I mean, hell, it's still widely used now. So, in a slower format, this coming back and punishing your opponent for setting too much spells and traps is, actually a little kind of a nice revenge from the grave style effect. In a slower format, sure. And at 2400 attack, it's big enough where a lot of things aren't going to be able to bash over it, so it's most likely getting killed by card effects, so it'll probably resolve its effect. However, as a level 8, those stats are pretty crappy for that level. So, take with that one as you will. Swords of Concealing Light. Yeah, see, this was actually in this set, and this is a good card, so cool, we finally got something that's seen competitive play even into the modern era. Yes! Swords of Concealing Light is a continuous spell that reads, when this card resolves, all monsters that your opponent currently controls are changed to face down defense position. Also, your opponent cannot change the battle positions of their monsters, meaning anything that this flipped down is now stuck that way. And after the second standby phase, after you've activated this card, you need to send this thing to the graveyard, so it's not permanent. It's like Swords of Revealing Light, but, it conceals things, so it puts it face down. You get it? The cool thing about putting monsters face down means they're no longer useful for things like Link and Synchronic Seas plays, and if they had immunities or on-field effects that were really bothering you, this shuts them off and then puts a lot of monsters in defense mode, which a lot of times is their weaker stat, giving you different options at dealing with things like that. Not only that, but your combos with monsters that do piercing damage, like your Chaos Max Dragon, which does double. So you can kind of punch for some extra damage. There's a lot of utility with this card, and the fact that it's 2 turns means you get some lasting utility out of it. You can clog up an extra deck zone with this if they have like an Exia or a Fusion in there. Another thing that's neat about this card is your opponent can't change the battle positions of monsters that are played even after this, but they can at least play them in attack mode, but if you need to put them in defense mode for some reason, they can't do that. So that's kind of a cool little added utility, keeping things that get played after the card's activation stuck with how they're played. There isn't much to say about this card. It's just its utility has gotten better and better as time goes on. It never gets worse. I think the only thing you could say is that Link Summoning did kind of, put a wrench in its spokes there, but, it's not awful still. Book of Moon's probably more versatile, being that it's a quick play, but I like Swords of Concealing Light. Next up is Rescue Cat. It's so freaking warm in here. Now this is a really interesting one because this card recently just came off the ban list, even though it does have a minor errata. But it's just really awesome to see just how old some of these really renowned and famous cards are and what weird obscure sets they came out in. Everybody wants to be your master, everyone wants to show their skill, everyone want to get there faster, back the way to the top of the hill. Because this is Duel Monsters era, what are you even supposed to do with Rescue Cat? I have no idea. Each time you try to get a little bit better, you step, you climb one more step up the ladder. Whatever, what does it do? Level 4 Earth Beast monster that says, Send it to the graveyard, special summon 2 level 3 or lower beast monsters from your deck. They are destroyed during the end of this turn. The recent errata amended a hard once per turn clause and also negates the effects of the 2 monsters summoned, but that doesn't really fly in the face of how the card works, and it's still a really great little +1 maneuver, getting 2 things out of your deck. Obviously this card doesn't really get to shine until the Synchro and Ixia era. However, you know what? It's at least a neat little +1 maneuver, and getting beast monsters out of your deck is, that's alright, because, you know, there's some decent beast support even in this set alone, so you can make at least a good beatdown deck with this, if you're just kind of gonna go swing for game. Oh my god. Alright, we're just gonna blow through the rest of the list. Come on, let's go. Phoenix Wing Wind Blast. Phoenix Wind Wing Blast? Phoenix Wing Wind Blast. Phoenix Wing Blast is a Phoenix Wing Blast is a oh god. Phoenix Wing Blast is a normal trap card that reads: discard 1 card from your hand and then target 1 card on the field that your opponent controls and put that on the top of their deck. It spins a card. Yes. Basically a trap version of that back to square one from the last set, making it infinitely more versatile, but it does make it a turn slower. However, that chainable ability of being a spell speed 2 means this card has seen play well beyond its years, and it's actually still a really decent little tech choice in certain decks, because a discard, you know, something like Burning Abyss can pay really well, and putting a choice card on the top of your opponent's deck can really brick their next turn depending on what you top deck. Like with Back to Square One, if you top deck a boss monster that they can't summon twice, or you top deck some spell like a Brilliant Fusion and they've already used the Garnet, so they would just be completely dead next turn. Those kind of things are super sweet targets for this card. Hey, and when you use it against an extra deck monster, you don't have to worry about them drawing at all. It's just, you know, going back to the extra deck. Sadly, it's a little neg-1 maneuver, but the fact that it's chainable and extremely disruptive for 2 turns in a row means that, you know, okay, you can make some argument that it's at least going even if you can assume that your opponent is basically not drawing a card next turn. Kinda. Nah. Deck Devastation Virus is next. Tribute a dark monster with 2k attack, and then look at your opponent's hand, all monsters they control and all cards they draw for the next 3 turns, and any monster you find with 1500 or less attack you destroy. Ah yes, one of the virus cards. All of these are really excellent, and against the certain decks they're just pretty much auto wins, so it's really cool to see how old these cards are, and I figured I would give this one its dues. Even though you could make the argument it's probably one of the weaker virus cards. But against a deck that has a lot of little tiny combo piece monsters that don't actually do anything, they're just meant to get into the extra deck, like a Synchro deck or something like that, it's actually not a bad thing to use against them because they're going to lose their whole hand, all their Synchrons and crap go to the grave, and it's like, oh, well, I get like maybe 1 effect or 2, but I can't actually make any plays anymore because you just nuked you nuked my hand, and then I'm going to be top decking and probably losing monsters that way. So against a combo heavy deck, it's actually a pretty solid little side deck. I was thinking about making this higher on the list, but if you look at the set in a bubble, it actually, like, besides Gatling Dragon, which is a terrible card, it doesn't really actually have a way of paying its own cost. So again, here's a weird example of how it's really hard to place cards if you keep the bubble as tight as possible, because a lot of these cards become useless even though they're good. Number 2 is Threatening Roar. Yeah, I really kind of hate this card. It's really annoying. It's one of those stall cards that cheese decks play. But the card's seen tons of competitive success in like Exodia and things like that, as well as overall just being a really solid little battle trap. Make sure that if you're using this card though, you activate it at the right time. Don't activate it upon an attack declaration because it's not going to negate that attack. It's only going to negate the attacks after that, which is not getting the full advantage of the card. No, when your opponent says enter battle, say during the end of the main phase I activate Threatening Roar. So that way they enter their battle and they can't really do anything. Just use the card right. Honestly, I like Wabaco a little better because, I don't know, I just like it. But this card is a good, you know, 4th, 5th, and 6th copy of Wabaco. So there you go. If you want to stall for time and, you know, draw your Exodia or your Final Countdown, whatever BS you're playing, here you go, Threatening Roar. Alright, we got some honorable mentions, so let's get started with those. Armed Samurai Benkai. This was before he was a super heavy samurai, I guess. Benkai is a level 4 Dark Warrior, and for every equip card you stick on him, he gets an additional attack. Meaning that if you get him really big, he can swing and he can probably OTK pretty easily with something like Megamorph and Axe of Despair and whatever. Mage Power and United We Stand, whatever cheese you want. And the fact that he's only got like 500 attack, it doesn't really matter too much because he's going to get big from all the crap you're sticking on him anyway. So okay, you could probably OTK with him. I'll give him some props. The next honorable mention we have is all those hex sealed fusion things. They all have slightly varied function, but they're basically just spicy versions of that Swamp King thing. They have some function, they have some use and utility. They're kind of cool, so you know they're in here too. And the last honorable mention we have is DD Dynamite. This hits your opponent for 300 damage for each one of their removed from play cards. When this card came out, not very good. In this set, not very good. But with things like Pot of Desires running around, you could hit your opponent for a cool 5k easy. So, you know, in one of those dumb, cheesy burn decks, okay, sure. And this set's dishonorable mention is Elemental Burst. I had no idea what this card I didn't know this existed, and it's terrible. Tribute one of each of an Earth, Fire, Wind, Water.
Go play! By your powers combined, I am Captain Planet!
Monster to activate this card. Ugh. Destroy all cards your opponent controls on their side of the field. Sure, you get to nuke their board of monsters, spells, and traps. The fact that you're tributing 4 monsters and then using this card means you're starting off -5, so you gotta really nuke a lot to get any value out of this card, and the card's gonna be dead most other times. Sure, you could cheese something with this, with that Dark Dorado or whatever the thing I'm thinking of, but even still, this is just so bad. The worst Element Saber tech ever. And last but not least, our #1 entry is Lightning Vortex. Oh, poor Lightning Vortex. This is probably the only acclaim you will ever get because you're just boneless Regeki. But whatever, what does it do? Discard 1 card, destroy all face-up monsters your opponent controls. Ugh. Why is this card not great? Well, because Regeki's better, Dark Hole's better, there's no activation cost, and it hits face downs. Those both hit face downs as well. Meaning this has limited targets and needs to kill at least, 2 to go even, whereas Regeki can just 1-for-1 a monster to go even, so your opponent really has to have a decently set up boards for you to get any real value out of the card. However, looking at the set in the bubble, when assuming that Regeki at this time was banned, and even maybe Dark Hole was as well, this is a decent kind of monster removal, and if your opponent set up a really big board, you know, and this was the only thing in your hand, with a discard cost, of course, it really wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. And in cheesy, fun formats, this isn't the worst thing ever. It's okay, and it's certainly the best card in the set, even because this set's really mediocre. So warm. But anyway, guys, that was Flames of Eternity or Flaming Eternity. Oh, stupid name generator they use. But it's getting some Flames of Eternity in here. So we're gonna cut the video down here, but anyway, guys, let me know in the comments below what you guys think, and tell me what set of GX you are excited about. And if you just notice the camera wobbling, it's because Marty's rubbing on the tripod. But anyway, guys, remember, if you don't troll the meta, who will? I'll see you guys next time. Marty!
The Destiny board tells me that you should subscribe to the channel, or you can watch some of these other videos. Now excuse me, my Millennium Ring has detected another Millennium item. Oh, it's just Merrick.
Bakura, did you remember to get milk? We're out of milk. This milk is bad. It was terrible.